Good evening, everybody. I'm so glad you have joined us. We've got some people live here in the room at Spartanburg County Public Libraries with me, and many online with my colleague Cheryl, who will be managing the chat. Because we have people in lots of different places. Write down your questions as we go, and we'll take questions at the end. But I hope people will have questions. My name is Charity Rouse. I'm the Director of Local History for the Spartanburg County Public Library System in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And it is our privilege to host this series. The first Monday of most months, we take a break, July, August, and September. So, and then we do post these recordings on our YouTube channel in the genealogy playlist. So if you missed something or want to revisit something, it will be there probably by the end of the week. Usually takes us a few days to get the video up. So DNA in practice. I have this match. Now what? So how do you evaluate your DNA matches? We're going to talk through some questions that you're going to need to ask and think through. So, which company? How close is the match? Can you identify them? Maybe from their username. Do they manage their own account, or does someone else manage the accounts of 4 or 5 people? And you can see that on the various platforms. Who are the shared matches? This is the most useful part of all of this. Who are the shared ancestors? Can you tell who, which great-grandparents these people share with you? Is it one? Is it both? Are there step-siblings involved, or not step-siblings, you don't share DNA with step-siblings most of the time, half-siblings involved that maybe there was a remarriage after a spouse died? Does the amount of DNA match the paper trail relationship? I have a bunch of matches that the DNA relationship is higher than you would expect because they are my mother's second cousins on 2, 3, or 4 lines. So we're going to look at that a little bit. It's not what you would consider endogamy, which is a population like the French Canadians, Old Order Mennonites or Amish that tend to marry within a very small geographic and sometimes religious or other grouping. It's pedigree collapse, which is where instead of 64 in a generation of great-grandparents, great-great-great-grandparents, you might have 52 great-grandparents because you share some of them multiple times on multiple lines. So, just a few basics to review. The unit of measurement for DNA is centimorgan, little c, big M. We're not getting into the sciencey parts of this. Just know that's the unit of measurement. And if you share more centimorgans, you are more closely related to someone than if you share fewer centimorgans. And there are multiple relationship possibilities. Once you get beyond parent, which is at about 3,500 centimorgans, full sibling ranges 2,000 to 2,600, 2,700 centimorgans. And then a half sibling is going to be a little below that, but the half sibling is also at a grandparent level or a great-grandparent level, great aunt, great uncle. There are overlapping amounts. So those double relationships that I referenced a few minutes ago add up. You might not get full double doses, but they're going to be higher than expected. And then each company tests slightly different portions of the chromosome. So the number of centimorgans is going to differ on different testing platforms. So I have an example of that in a minute. The only way to compare results, if you don't test at the same company, is to upload both sets to a third party like GEDmatch or both upload to one of the companies that allows uploads, Family Tree DNA, MyHeritage, Living DNA. Ancestry and 23andMe, you have to test directly with that company with their test. Now, if you haven't tested with one of those two, and they are the largest of the two testing platforms, sales happen regularly, and we're headed into the Mother's Day and Father's Day sales. So you may want to keep an eye out for those. So, first of all, what does the match list look like? I have tested with all 5 of the genealogy testing companies currently on the market. 4 of them have been around for a while. Living DNA hasn't been around as long, and you'll see the difference in the number of test results. But each company has a different display. They have different tools to work with. Some companies will use % of shared DNA, like 2% shared DNA, rather than however many hundred centimorgans. So, and we'll talk about how to translate those and a tool that can help with that. Matches may use a consistent username, or they may use different names on different platforms. Mine, I use different usernames on the different platforms. It depended on what I was setting up at the time. And I don't even use a consistent email address with mine. So I also know that I talk about my family a lot. And as a genealogist, professional ethics as a genealogy speaker prohibit me from talking identifiably about people that I don't have written permission to talk about, which in this case means I have fine-tooth combed my DNA results. You will see a lot of redacted information in what I'm showing you in the screenshot. And if I missed something, I devoutly apologize to my matches, because I only have one match that I can talk about without redacting myself, and that is my mother. So she has given me blanket permission to talk about her stuff, because she finds this stuff fascinating. I can talk about my own, but especially if a match may have an unknown parentage situation going on, not my job to out them, and not my job to out them on a recorded program that's going on the web. So, that just says, do be careful when you are using your DNA results, when you're communicating with your matches. Be sensitive to the fact that some people only want to communicate within the various programs or with a specific email address that is attached to those results. Other people may be open to you Facebook stalking them. It just depends. I don't use a photo with mine because I talk about my stuff too much, and I don't want to make it all that easy to find. But other people do. My mother has photos with her test accounts. The shared centimorgan tool at DNApainter.com, we will look at this at the end of the program, is your friend for converting % to centimorgans and back. And it also has good recommendations for matching options. Hey, this could be this or that or the other or the third thing at those match levels. So this is what an ancestry match list looks like. This is mine. If you have a tree attached to your match list, that will be a little blue hyperlink below your Charity Rouse's DNA matches at the top of your page. There are different categories, and these have changed significantly since I first tested with Ancestry in 2016, did the test at Christmas of 2015, and they have added all sorts of things. So you can see all matches, you can see the ones that they have identified as being paternal or maternal. And this even without having a parent tested, although having a parent tested helps considerably with dividing those things out. On the matches, you will see if they have a photo. You will see the match name, both redacted even on my mom, because I have to be consistent or I will miss something. You will see their guess at the relationship. In this case, it's mother at 3487 centimorgans, or 50% shared DNA. Ancestry used to only show the centimorgan number. Now it shows both centimorgan number and percentage. You can see she has a public tree of 57 people on her account, and Ancestry has identified a common ancestor. Well, every single person on that tree is a common ancestor, because that is a pedigree tree of only the direct line back. For those who may be uncomfortable with putting your full research tree, like me, out there attached to your DNA results, having a pedigree that has both maiden names of the maternal side and the surnames of the paternals can really be helpful to your matches, because somebody can go into my pedigree or mom's pedigree tree there and see, oh, your mother was a goad, G-O-A-D. I know my great-grandmother was a goad. Let's see if that's how we match. And then you can build out the tree and discover, yes, that's how you match. Johnson is not going to be as easy a surname to work with. That's the other side of the goad. So, and then you have a choice on Ancestry to identify that, do you recognize this match? Yes, I recognize the first 4 matches right offhand. The 5th match, not so much, but I have a theory about where that non-parental event or not parent expected may have come into the situation. And again, not my place. If they ask me, I will share what I think, but not my place to confront them about that, because it's not on my line. It's on their side. And that's their choice. So, but I can't put them in my tree because I don't have proof that that is the connection. So, Ancestry at one point, early on, only allowed you to do either star or no star. That was the only sorting method you could do. And because I had mom tested, and because they didn't tell you maternal or paternal at that point, it was, if they match mom, we're great. If they match dad, they get a gold star. Because, well, dad's side of the family is a lot smaller than mom's. Later, Ancestry added these little colored dots that you see on the 3rd and 4th people there. And those colored dots are how I have identified surname lines in my family. And that this person is MT, that 3rd one is Eastern Shore. They are in my research tree and the surname line that we share. That's my father's one living first cousin out of the 4 of them that existed. So, that helps. My mother is one of 29 first cousins on her mother's side and one of 7 on her father's side. My father was one of 4 and an only. So we got a lot of DNA going on mom's side of the family. On Ancestry, my top 100 matches, 90 of them are on mom's side, about evenly divided between those 2 sides. 10 of them are on my father's mom's side. None of them are on my father's dad's side, which is my South Carolina line. My top match is 74 centimorgans for my South Carolina line. Now I do match all of the expected lines, but I really have to dig for them. It's a different problem than the main example for today. So, 23andMe has DNA relatives. They're really trying to sell you the health-based stuff in the trait. And it's good, those are good coffee table conversations, and unless you have a well-studied thing like cystic fibrosis, it's not probably going to be very helpful to you, but you're welcome to do the health testing. Just know the health testing says that genetically I shouldn't be able to match pitch. 2 degrees in vocal music and a lifetime in choir would say otherwise. And I'm supposed to have brown eyes. I don't, I have gray. Things like that. It tells you you are likely to have, but it doesn't tell you that you do have. You know, 1 of 6 indicators for Alzheimer's. Well, there are 20 some indicators for Alzheimer's. So the fact I have 1 of the 6 they test, is that helpful? I don't know. So I find the relative matching, not just because I'm a genealogist, but I find the relative matching to be a lot more accurate and helpful. So, but that is my opinion. Ancestry, I had about 112,000 matches, okay? That said, lots of people have tested. 23andMe caps at 1,500. I have 1,512 matches here because I have connected with some of those people who used to be on the bottom of my list and would have fallen off had we not connected. So you're working with a lot more compact pool at 23andMe. It doesn't go down as far. It only goes down to about my 4th cousins at about the lowest is 57 centimorgans, which is still a pretty decent match. So just know that different companies are going to give you different match groups. I have plenty of matches that have only tested at 23andMe, SL, AE, WG, they're only here at 23andMe. They did not test it Ancestry. So sometimes, especially if you're looking for a unexpected parentage event or missing family member that you know should be around somewhere, you're gonna wanna make sure you tested each of the testing companies and at least attempt to fish in all of the ponds that you can. But it does tell you on 23andMe relationship, because my mother has tested, that changed how my display shows. So it does say maternal and paternal pretty reliably. But again, out of my top 100, it's about 91 maternal, 9 paternal. Again, all 9 of those are on my dad's mom's side. Go figure. Family Tree DNA is the oldest of the testing companies. They are the only one that does specific Y-DNA for male testing, as well as mtDNA on that straight female line testing. The top results here, my mother, my brother, he was going to do 1 test for me and I needed the Y-DNA badly because he is the only living male. The other lines of the half siblings of my 2nd great grandfather, all daughtered out. No one has our surname. So, and that's a line we have questions about, but because my father was the only great grandchild. That's always fun. So, my great aunt, my mother's paternal aunt, also tested with Family Tree DNA, in part because we are very curious about her mother's family, because we had a situation that a shoemaker married a shoemaker, and that's all we needed to know, according to my great-grandmother. So, unfortunately, I have found nothing suspicious and no overlaps between those 2 families yet. It's a very straightforward group of people so far. So I don't know what great-grandma was so concerned about. We'll figure it out eventually. This one, I have more who may be paternal in the top 100. And again, testing companies, 61 are definitely maternal. And with mom having tested there, that's pretty confident that those are the ones I definitely match with her. The other 39 of my top 100, some of them, they may just not share quite enough DNA because this one, while I have 10,000 matches, some of them are very small. Family tree DNA counts very small segments of DNA, and that can skew things a little bit. Ancestry counts larger chunks, 23andMe counts larger chunks of DNA. Slightly more reliable on the totals. MyHeritage, I tested directly with them, which means that I did not get all of the bells and whistles that if I had transferred and paid a small unlock fee, they would have given me bells and whistles. Yes, I have complained and no, it hadn't done anything. But anyway, MyHeritage, like Ancestry, you have to have subscriptions to do a lot of the things. They are in the business of making money. But MyHeritage does a little kind of circle thing, close matches in the middle, the next round, which is where all of these matches pop in. I have 17 in that top 2 rounds. The closest is a probable second cousin of my mother. And most of these seem to be maternal from the surnames. I haven't done a lot of work with MyHeritage results because I have a lot to work with on the other databases. But I do have 27,430 matches over here, so something to work with. But again, I don't have a lot of tools here, so I can see one shared match with each person, which can be helpful, can solve some problems, especially if they are people that match me on other platforms. So again, don't count it out because it's a smaller database. And don't take their ethnicity estimates as anything but a joke, okay? Because they're still claiming 5 years, no, longer than that. I tested, I think it's 17. They're still trying to tell me that I have 9% African continent. I'm like 98% Northwestern Europe, Great Britain, and a little bit of Scandinavia. Nobody else can find Africa in me. I trust 4 companies over the one outlier. So, take it with a grain of salt. And then Living DNA is newer on the market. They're out of Great Britain. I tested there because they were the first to break down Great Britain. And I was headed to visit Great Britain in 2019 on an extended trip. And I kind of wanted to know what parts of the country to kind of concentrate on. And the response was kind of most of it. So, but I don't know why Cumbria felt so much like home. The Lake District really felt home-like. Well, I have a chunk, according to Living DNA at least, and 23andMe also comes up with it as being part of my DNA ethnicity. But Living DNA, I have a grand total of 912 matches. 1 second to third cousin who is this new person who just showed up at the top, SR. 1 second to fourth, what they call a 7th degree cousin, 8th degree cousins, which would be 3rd to 5th cousins. And then it gets real slim pickings after that. And so MyHeritage and Living DNA, most of my matches are US matches who have uploaded because we're the kind of core genealogists who do all of the things. And so a lot of these I will find buried in my other results. This top one is interesting because she is a paternal match, haven't quite identified where she is. Doesn't use the same username on each of the sites, but she uses the same picture. And the usernames are close enough that it's pretty easy to tell this is the same person. So now that I'm at a stopping point on the match that I picked for the demonstration match for the rest of the program, I'll be going after Miss SR. So, breakdown of matches by company. I have 112,479 Ancestry matches, it was 1513 in February, 1512 now. 23andMe did have a data breach. Some people got a little bit queasy about that. Understandably, I get it. And so some people have removed. So that was one of the people that I had a connection with who removed their results. So there's a breakdown at Ancestry of the maternal, paternal. It's about 2/3 maternal, 1/3 paternal, 167 both. The closest of those is about 6th, 7th, 8th cousin, so pretty distant. But the likelihood of 3/4 of the family being in Virginia and the other parents matching up, it could happen. I mean, you know, population isn't that huge when you go back 100 or 200 years. So, and again, that 4th cousin or closer, my heritage, it's the 3rd cousin and up. So I don't know how many 4th cousins. So it's higher than that 17. Living DNA, it's 10. Again, much smaller. And then family tree DNA doesn't give that kind of statistic. Ancestry is by far the largest of the companies, over 28 million testers. So, as you look for people on multiple platforms, SR is that match that showed up at Living DNA, where they say she and I share 101.25 centimorgans. Well, at Ancestry, we share 57 centimorgans. At 23andMe, we share 66 centimorgans. Living DNA is counting a lot of small little segments that, because we are both largely British Isles, there's some stuff that Ancestry eliminates because it is most likely identical by state. It's identical by just commonality within an ethnic group versus family connection. So, something to just be aware of when you're looking at different companies and matching whatever. Now, it may also be that in the testing, I had some no calls on some of my genes, and they had some no calls on some of my genes, and that eliminated 15 or 20 centimorgans right there. So, just depends. Some of these I've been able to identify, some of them I haven't. JF is related to AF on Ancestry, as far as I can tell. And unknown, I have my theories. But again, those are pretty solid matches in the 200s and 170s, 150s. So, but it tells me, and this is just a demo little chart that I did for the presentation, but you can do this for all of your matches if you would like to compare across the platforms. So, starting on Ancestry, because it's the largest one and it's the test company that more people have tested on. Went through my match list, did the top 50. At the start, so this was back in February, beginning of March, 28 of them I know exactly who they are, how they fit in my tree, no doubts whatsoever. The DNA match numbers fit right into the right buckets. Solid. 10 of them, I know approximately where they fit in my tree, but I'm missing a generation. There are 3 sons with the surname. The match has that surname. Probably the son of one of those 3 sons, but I don't know which one. Could be the son of a daughter who used her maiden name for the child. So I can't connect them. One of them is a probable oops, as I generally refer to them, but not parent expected, or not expected parent. So, you know, but I know generally by the shared matches, what part of the family tree they should be in. And those 10, I know pretty much where they are. Actually, I've identified at least a couple of those. 9, I have probable grandparent, great-grandparent line because of shared matches and things, but there's not enough information for me to actually identify completely yet. And there are 3 of them I have absolutely no clue because they have no trees. They have a username that does not reflect anything but a hobby. And one of them has a tree, but the tree doesn't match with the tree dead ends in a female and the match is a male. And none of the people on that tree match anything I know. So it's highly likely there is a not expected parent event in there somewhere. And I don't have enough details to work on that. Not my job. Went to my ancestry matches and looking down, and this is the next batch of matches after that first one I showed you. A couple more of my mother's first cousins. Oh, there's my grandfather's first cousin. Don't take age as an indicator of generation. My grandfather was one of at least 74 first cousins, ranging in birth years, and I still haven't identified birth years for 3 of them, 1908 to 1954. 46 years of range in those 74 cousins. And I'm not sure I've got all the younger ones because 1950 census, they're not on that because they're too young. There may be more than 74. So WP there, the 3rd one down, is my grandfather's first cousin. She is younger than my mother, and her children are my age and younger. Talk about generations crossing. So, age can be an indicator, but it can also be a red herring. So I'm going down and I'm like, okay, there's my cousin's kid with the pretty flower is the picture. Another second cousin. Oh, definite second cousin. I know DL. And so I at least know who these people are. I've identified them. So I go on down and I randomly pick a match, DQ. I was in the mood for ice cream that day. He's one of that 9 that I think, at least in February, I thought I knew which grandparent line he was on, didn't have him in my tree, shared matches. Okay, yeah, has to be on the Goad side, my grandmother's side of the family. I already knew where at least one Quisenberry, last name, married one of my grandmother's first cousins. Yeah, I had 18 of that surname in my tree at that point in February when I started this. Do remember the spelling variations are common. I've seen about 8 or 9 spelling variations of Quisenberry. 1 R, 2 R's, ES, IN. I mean, it's all over the map. And they were in the mountains of Virginia. Relatively literate family, all told. But I can't say all the time because since takers, they did their best, bless their heart. Looked at DQ's page, and they're guesstimating 2nd to 3rd cousin on the maternal side. Okay, that would be about right. And I did not do the screenshot of this, but under the 2nd to 3rd cousin maternal side, there's that 2% shared DNA, 152 centimorgans across 6 segments. If you click on that hyperlink, Ancestry will give you a list of probabilities of what relationship you might be. Problem with all of these probabilities is they assume one relationship. Double cousins, triple cousins, quadruple cousins of varying distances mess that up a little bit. So take it with a grain of salt. This is why there are ranges. I have added him to the little purple dot there is the Goad dot for my groups. I have made a note, hey, it matches Goad side. As I triage things, I try to help my future self a little bit. If he had common ancestors, if he had a tree associated with his results and I have a tree associated with mine, and through lines can get enough information to jump in on that, take it with a grain of salt. Through lines are based on other people's trees. Other people's trees are sometimes really excellent and sometimes pure fiction. So most of them are quite in the middle. So just remember, take a grain of salt there. And then if he had had trees, it would have shown a tree there, shared surnames, those types of things. Estimated an ancestor if possible. The ethnicity in this situation will not help. You see that little target of Northwestern Europe and the British Isles? Yeah, nothing distinctive there to really differentiate. If you did have a grandparent who was from Africa or Asia or Native American or someplace very different than your other three grandparents or one parent that's very different ethnicity, with very different ethnicities than your other parent, the ethnicities may help a little bit in some of the triage. Again, these have changed so significantly over time with the details of where it is. Again, use the tool, but don't count on that, Viking marauder. My Viking was female, thank you very much. My maternal haplogroup, very much Viking, and Northwest Finland, Northern Finland, actually. But anyway, so went to the shared matches with Mr. DQ here, and my mother matches, her sister matches, first cousin one, first cousin of my mother, first cousin one, first cousin two, first cousin three, my first cousin, double second cousin, BK, he's the one where the tree and the everything else just don't match up. So he's not helpful. Continuing down, the next BK still can't figure out. Yeah, I've got them in the second one is in my tree under their username because I still don't know which kid she is, but I know who her parents are. And we keep moving down. And so I checked my research tree, Quisenberry, appeared in my tree 18 times when I started the research. I'm up to 85 instances and still don't know where Mr. DQ and I match. I did identify 5 other matches in the process, so it was not useless research. And for DNA, you have to build your tree out wide and down into those living people, because only living people test with DNA. Only people who were alive as of circa 2012 and later will have tested. Family tree DNA has Y-DNA and mtDNA earlier than that. There are some beta testers that may have autosomal DNA results as early as 2009, 2010, but those are going to be few and far between. They were the people really willing to pay a lot of money for an experiment. 2012 is when autosomal, which is that across the tree DNA, came on the market widely. So 23andMe, Ancestry, family tree DNA. So you need to be aware. My father died in 1997. Cannot test him. Couldn't test him then, can't test him now. It's before the age of DNA. So, however, we've got a lot of DNA tests out there at the major companies, and the tester is no longer with the living. So, if you're not getting a response, it's not because they're being rude. Sometimes it's because they just can't. So, for many reasons. But anyway, so I started looking at my tree. Is the match in my tree? Well, I knew one of Grandma's first cousins married a Quisenberry, Miss Hassey over here. And then I realized that 2 of my great-grandparents' double first cousins married Quisenberries, because I had a 2 goad boys married 2 Gardner girls. So double all the results down. Some of these people I matches in up to 4 different ways. Mountains of Virginia, large families, not a lot of choices. There's remarkably not a lot of overlap in my direct line, but the siblings keep interfering. And so it's a little bit of, again, pedigree collapse. The actual match would be much further away than the DNA total would suggest due to these multiple relationships. Your mileage may vary. Your tree may have very distinct branches. So you're just gonna have to figure out your tree. I did check DQ's profile and ancestry. Sometimes that will give you some hints as to an age bracket or where they live or how recently they've been active, that kind of thing. Nothing. They might have a tree on their account that's just not linked to their DNA results. Again, use these with a little bit of skepticism because any public trees on my account aren't mine. They're ones I've done for other people. So you may find helpful, or you may find it not helpful. Evaluate possible relationships. I do like using Excel to just list things out. I like grids. They drive my mother, who is an artist, nuts. So she likes to think in circles and clumps. I like to think in grids and lines. So, you know, again, different tools are going to resonate with different people. So this is a little spreadsheet I made that on Ancestry, I match using initials and how many centimorgans I match with the various people. If I have figured out how they relate, you know, a lot of first cousin runs removed there. Some that I haven't figured out whether they're in my tree or not in my tree. And what are the surnames that I've determined are in common? And so some of these I've had to go, oh, yeah, Goad, Durnell, Quisenberry, Gardner, Dalton, Bobbitt, and they're double Goad Gardner because I come from Wesley and Tabitha, and they come from Eli and Elizabeth, brothers who married sisters. So that always helps. So Nesters and Largens also married in, I don't have them on my direct line, but they marry in repeatedly, as do Phillips. If you've ever been to Carroll County, Virginia, Hillsville is there near where I-77 goes up into Virginia from North Carolina. That is largely up and down the Blue Ridge from I-77 is where this whole family is. The Johnsons are south of I-77. This batch is north of I-77. And so, again, up and down the ridge of the Blue Ridge, spilling both sides of the mountains there. So, lots of people with these surnames. So, the Leeds method is another way to sort your matches, and it's graphic and color coordinated, and that may help some people. It's still too rigid for my mother, but it is helpful to me. So you start with your first person, use your Excel or your whatever the Google form version of it is. And I would use the whole name in my real one, the whole username, but I use initials here because that way I don't have to redact as much. And then how many centimorgans you match at. And then group one is whoever you start with. So I started group one with DQ, which is slightly different from the official Leeds method, but it works for the example. I always put X's in who my person I'm going off of is, and then I do all the shared matches. Leeds method, you go from 400 centimorgans to 90 centimorgans. On my dad's side of the family, I had to go down to 50 centimorgans because, as I said, none of his paternal relatives share more than 74 centimorgans with me. And there's nobody alive on my side of the family to test other than me and my brother, who's going to have the same issues as I do because we're at the same genetic level of descent. So they recommend that you, Dana recommends that you eliminate those first cousin matches because of situations like if you see when I started group two, which is on mom's dad's side of the family, that orange, AG is my first cousin's kid. So it's my first cousin once removed. She matches on both grandparent lines because her great-grandparents are my grandparents. So that's why she's matching on two different sides of the family. So she is helpful to get maternal versus paternal, but not helpful to break down the grandparent lines and great-grandparent lines. So, and then I went down and I did a third group that was from my dad's mom's side of the family. And then I sorted everything by centimorgan number, top to bottom. And so you can see that you've got group 1, you've got group 2, you've got group 3. And as you work through the leads method and do more, you're finding that this person matches into this group, this person matches into this group. You may end up with 8 columns. You may end up with a couple more if you have a bunch of half sibling situations. Like me, you end up with a blank group 4 because none of them have enough centimorgans to be at 90 centimorgans. And so if you have cousins who relate to each other in different ways, that will also make this a little messy. In my bigger one, it's a little messy. I have 7 groups and 5 of them are on my mother's side of the family. So you know, it happens. But in many families, you can get 8 great-grandparent lines, at least mainly identified, which helps you as you're looking at that match. Oh, these shared matches are all in this part of the family. Okay, maybe I need to work on that part of my tree, and eventually I may find the right person. So DNA has to work with the tree. The tree has to work with the DNA, because you can't do them in a vacuum. One tool I want to mention at 23andMe, which finally came back online in the midst of this, due to the data breach, they had taken it away for a little bit, but this is not DQ. He has not tested at 23andMe. This is Nancy, another cousin. But you see, she matches my mother matches me as mother-daughter, matches Nancy as first cousin once removed. My mother's paternal first cousin matches my mother as first cousin once removed, which is odd because they're first cousins. And as a second cousin to Nancy. And you keep going. One of the things I found with a match on 23andMe was, why is my mother's maternal first cousin, BL, matching this person who is solidly on my mom's dad's side of the family? Well, this chart said that BL matches that third person as a 5th cousin, matches us as a 2nd cousin. So I went looking in BL's tree and built a tree for that match. Sure enough, they match on the opposite side of the family than how they match me. So I was looking for a sorrel, and I'm related to no sorrels, but both of them are. So it's just one of those things that sometimes you have to remember that just because Ancestry says you are matches in common, you may not be related to each of them in the same way, especially if the family's a little convoluted, like mine. So DNA Painter I mentioned, and I'm going to show a couple screenshots, and then we're going to shift over to the actual site because it'll be easier. But DNA Painter is a third-party platform that Johnny Pearl is the developer, and he has put together some great tools. He also hosts the Shared Centimorgan Project, and that is a crowdsourced project, and looks like this. And you put your little, how much DNA you share up here in the box, or if you have a percentage, you put that in the box, and then it will light up the parts of it that you could be related to. So again, it's a very visual way to see this data and help you figure out, okay, maybe I should be checking here, or maybe I should be checking there. And I'm going to, and it's going to take me just a second because I got to do two processes, one for the in the room and one for the online. So I'm going to stop sharing for the online, and I am going to share my other screen. There. Okay, and in the room, I have got to get back to that and close it, and that and close it. Come on. Okay. Close those and pull. Come on. No, that was not what I wanted you to do. There. So, DNA Painter. And Cheryl, can you confirm that I've got DNA Painter up on that screen too?
I can. I'm looking at it.
Awesome. Okay, so the shared Cinnamorgan tool is the figure out how you're related. You can also go up to the tools menu and it will give you the various tools. What are the odds is one that I've had trouble figuring out, but I'm probably approaching it from the wrong side of the question. But the shared Cinnamorgan tool, so that SR, one of the numbers that they matched me with was 66 centimorgans. So that could be a half, 33% chance of that being a half third cousin once removed, half second cousins 2 times removed, etc. And in the chart down here, the things that highlight say, hey, this is what it could be. These are the types of relationships that share this many centimorgans. The issue is, by the time you get to third cousins, you have lost about 10% from your genetic matches. So 10% of your valid absolute third cousins, you will not share identifiable DNA with. And then the more distant that relationship gets, the more likely you will not share DNA with legitimate cousins. So just know a lot of these relationships run from 0 to, let's see, 244. That's a wide range. I'd say the higher side of that range are the people who, yeah, it's a second cousin twice removed 3 times, but they don't like you to tell them 3 times. So, let's see, let's do a 1800. So 1800 centimorgans is going to be 100%. Well, you're a grandparent, you're an aunt, uncle, you're a half sibling, you're a niece or nephew, or you're a grandchild. Still a bunch of relationships. When you get up to 2400, 99% sibling. So you're gonna have to look at things. It's not just hey, I did my DNA test. It's gonna just automatically build me my tree and that kind of thing. Although 23andMe tries to build you the tree, that mystery match that I think I know where it goes showed up as a mystery first cousin that my mother had an unknown sibling, which we know is not the case. After my mother tested with 23andMe, it, moved a generation over, or a chunk of the family over. And so it's just one of those things. It's doing probabilities with the amount of DNA that you share, but it's guessing on the most likely, which may not be correct. So my 23andMe tree went from a real interesting little thing with some unknowns in there in places I'm going, no, that's all right. when my mother tested being a generation closer, all of a sudden things just kind of went poof, and a lot of things moved. So these tools are refining themselves. They are using AI stuff in the background, all of this computing power we've got, but it still takes human brain power to think through what it is. And if I can, I'm going to real quick, because I do have a minute, woohoo, go over to Dana Leeds' website, the Leeds method, and this is in your handout, but the Leeds method that she has developed over time, she has information on her website, a series of blog posts that tell you how to do the process. And you go through the blog posts, and it's a step-by-step what happens when you add these smaller DNA numbers, like I had to do with dad's side. Now, what I did with dad's side was I eliminated all of mom's matches, and I only did my father's matches. Now, I did both sides of it. I didn't start with 74. I did the Eastern Shore matches as well as the South Carolina matches. And it gave me some ideas. Now, I did that like 2 years ago, and now I'm gonna have to revisit it because I haven't added every new match into it as they came in. Some people have the time to do that, bless them. And then there are some other tools out there that are mentioned here that Dana Leeds has helped develop. Johnny Pearl has other stuff on DNA Painter. You can explore. Some of these are fee-based or subscription-based tools. Some of these are free tools, and you'll just have to look at them and read about them to see if you think they're going to be helpful to you. I do use GEDmatch on occasion. I have results uploaded to GEDmatch, which I didn't get on your handout, but that is another third-party tool, GEDmatch.com. That you create an account, you upload a DNA test, and then it will run it against the tests that have been uploaded from various other places. Since it's been bought out by a for-profit company from the two retired dudes who developed it in their garage in Florida, or one of their garages in Florida, haven't been as active on GEDmatch, but it's still a useful tool for comparing results across platforms. There are some paid tier tools that you can do. Hey, show me everybody who matches this test and this test if you manage multiple tests, and that helps immensely because sometimes you can get it some information that you couldn't otherwise. So, okay, I see that there are some things in the chat online, and those folks who are in the room who has questions online, if you have questions, type them in the chat.
Okay, we already have one question. This is from Bill. He posted this question early on, and I think you addressed this, but it says, why would someone test and have a public tree but not link it to their test or their account?
Well, one of the reasons is the learning curve. They didn't know what they were doing when they were setting up their account. I let my mother set up her Ancestry account because she ordered and paid for the tests for Christmas that year. She put her married name on the stupid account. Maiden name is standard. I told her maiden name, but she's a creative thinker. She did what she was going to do. So I think that's part of it. Now, I do manage that. I have manager access to her account on Ancestry, and I don't let her play with the 23andMe one because that one has to go through my account, and she doesn't get to play with my account. But on Ancestry, I connected that tree. So it's whoever's managing or whoever's setting up the account. And It's not terribly difficult, but you do have to follow the instructions. So yeah, now there's some people who you click into their tree, it says they've got 12 people in the tree and every single one of them is private because they're all living. That may not help you much either, but I can often look at somebody's trees with some of the private stuff and start counting up blue and pink girls, blue boys and pink girls and things. And if there's one person who's not living in that tree, who's deceased, sometimes you can at least construct approximately where that person is going to fit in your tree. So, but yeah, that would be why. And then some people do get a little scared. They get somebody who reaches out really anxious about, I'm an adoptee and you match me. And then they get a little, I'm backing off because I don't want this skeleton coming out of the closet. And they didn't even know that it was a possibility. But yeah, if you don't want skeletons coming out of at least some closets, I would recommend not DNA testing, but the skeleton's coming out at this point, whether you test or not. But yeah.
Okay, another question that just came in. The person says, I've been trying to verify if my grandfather is my biological dad's birth father. His obituary says he's adopted. How do I approach that?
So in an adoption situation, I would definitely make sure that yours or your dad, if your biological dad, whoever the person closest to the suspected disconnect in the tree, get that person to test, whether it's you, like in my dad's family situation, it's my brother or me, we're it. But if it's mom's family, it's getting mom to test, getting more of her first cousins to test. There's still 12 of them alive to test. And 5 of them have tested. So doing pretty well on that. And I haven't had to pay for any of those tests other than, well, mom paid for her own. So yeah, I would test across the platforms and then start dividing these results by the various which family and see if you can identify a part of your tree that does not match with the DNA matches. So if you see the names in the obituary and they are matching, although it says he's adopted, that could be a, hey, wait a minute. If you can get any first cousins or second cousins on that side of the family, to make sure you're testing across the tree to that people that should or you suspect would have the same ancestor, same grandparent or great grandparent, that can be another way to kind of circle around it. And sometimes you find that you test all these people and nobody's matching you. And then sometimes you find somebody's matching at a suspiciously high test, or you're matching everybody, which would prove that, you know what, that shared great grandparent is that shared great grandparent. So it, yeah. I feel for people who do not log in and have 100,000 matches like I do. It's overwhelming on the one hand. But as I work with dad's results, I recognize that a lot of people who don't have colonial Virginia ancestry on all sides of the family do struggle a little bit more. Yeah.
And so far, as far as I can see, those were the only 2 questions that we had. But everybody says thank you.
Questions? I'm looking at these 3 ladies going, okay. Yeah.
That DNA painter, got the chart with the names and the thing.
Right, Senator Morgan.
Do you furnish them with the DNA, or do you have your DNA tested through the DNA painter?
No, DNA painter is only a tool to work with numbers of DNA from other So you test it, Ancestry, 23andMe, Family Tree DNA, or MyHeritage or Living DNA.
So you had to furnish your DNA too.
Well, you're dealing with the numbers, and then in the what are the odds pool, you're filling in from your results what these options are. So yeah, you are, it is not automatic, although there is now a GEDCOM upload, which is that it's a skeleton family tree without the sources on it, that you can download a GEDCOM and then you can upload it there, so you don't have to manually populate the what are the odds tool. But yeah, that one, again, I've played around with it a little bit, but I haven't been able to figure out exactly how it's working. And I think I'm approaching it from I know who I am. I'm trying to figure out this person over there. And the what are the odds tool is really working from that mystery matches test, trying to connect to other people known. And so and I don't have the right numbers because I can't get my second cousin to tell me how they match this person. And their sister on 23andMe, how they match I think, half brother. So, because I've pulled all of the obituaries for the parents and grandparents, and all of these names are lining up. And the brother who has the tree either hasn't done a DNA test or doesn't match anybody. So it's one of those situations where it's making me, I want to figure out the puzzle, but I'm also not going to be the one to say this is what's going on in y'all's family, because that's a little rude of me, actually.
Charity, you've got another question. I think you're really going to like this one. It
Okay.
says, I have seen people from many other states visiting your meetings. How do they find out about your meetings? Is there a resource that lists free genealogy webcasts?
Yes, there is. It's called Conference Keeper. Conference, like in conferences, KEEPER.org. And it started out as an email, and it is now part of the National Genealogical Society umbrella of resources. Let's see if I can get it up here. And yeah, Conference Keeper. Oops, y'all don't need to see the chat on it. But Conference Keeper is the genealogy calendar of events. I am blanking on the lady's name who runs it. She lives in Charlotte. I've met her at numerous conferences now. And so it is a free listing of conferences, sessions, paid, virtual, in-person, different kinds of things you can do by location, national conferences, whatever. But it has slowly become the place to locate a lot of these kinds of events. So, yep, conferencekeeper.org. And it's fantastic. I check their call for papers periodically because sometimes I throw my hat in the ring for some of the various conferences. I happened to see a call for papers 5 years ago for a conference in the UK that happened to be while I was going to be there on my sabbatical on my UK trip. And so I got to speak at that conference at Pembroke College, Oxford, for English genealogists talking about how to do American research, because they are used to everything being at the national level. Wales, Scotland, Ireland, Northern Ireland, England. And just were having trouble helping their clients there research the cousins who immigrated to the US. And I was able to do a presentation on, hey, well, this is how it works in the US. You have to go to the state level and the county level. Very little is at the national level. And it was just like I went through the room hitting people in the back of the head. baseball bat or something. It was very interesting. So yeah, so you can find a lot of things here, and it's very helpful. There are webinars and that kind of thing. We do always put ours up on here. And so ours are there, but you can always also find our stuff on the library's website.
Okay.
So,
All
good
right.
question.
Well, that seems to be the last of the questions.
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for coming tonight. As I said before, this will get posted shortly in the next couple of days on the website, YouTube page in the genealogy playlist, Spartanburg County Public Libraries. Thanks for joining us. And next month, I hope to see you for Civil War service records and pensions on May 6th. Thank you very much. And Cheryl, you can stop the recording.
Thank you.